The date is 6/11 of '07 at 12:28 hours. You have the right to remain silent. Anything you say can and will be used against you in court of law. Do you understand each of these rights if I explain them to you?
I do.
Do you wish to talk to us at this time?
I do.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. You went in the bathroom.
I went in the bathroom. I got in a stall, sat down. Your foot came toward mine came toward yours. Was that natural? I don't know. Did we bump? Yes, I think we did. The next thing I knew, under the bathroom divider comes a card that says police.
What about your hand?
What about my hand?
I could see the big old wedding ring, so I could see that. Have you been successful in these bathrooms here before?
No, absolutely not. I don't seek activity in bathrooms.
Well, you're not being truthful with me. I'm kind of disappointed in you, Senator. I'm really disappointed right now. Okay, sir. We deal with people that lie to us every day.
Gentlemen, so do I.
I'm sure you do. I've never had to bring anybody to jail because everybody's been truthful to me.
I don't want you to take me to jail, and I think
I'm not going to take you to jail as long as you be cooperative, but I mean, people vote for you.
And I'm a respectable person, and I don't do these kinds of...
And I do respect right now, though.
I am not gay. I don't do these kinds of things, and I don't do those things.
At its fundamental core, at its base, it is so profoundly unhealthy because it goes back to that simple manifestation, that simple Shakespearean quote, "Until thine own self be true." You have to be true to yourself, and then, God willing, true to your loved ones, to your community, to your public.
Turning now to Washington, D.C., where the report of the arrest of Senator Larry Craig is generating a massive media frenzy.
Breaking tonight, a Republican senator busted by police.
Craig's arrest was first reported about 24 hours or so ago.
A day later, the Idaho Statesman published the story it had been holding.
Republican Senator Larry Craig from Idaho. Again, he will be having a news conference in 45 minutes.
Thank you all very much for coming out today. First, please let me apologize to my family, friends, and staff, and fellow Idahoans for the cloud placed over Idaho.
Senator, what happened in Minneapolis?
Hey, what if you were gay?
Come out of the closet.
All right, man. Come on, Larry, be gay.
I think it's very sad. This is somebody who has lived in the closet his whole life, has probably cheated on his wife any number of times. You know, it's a twisted kind of psychological thing that happens when you're in the closet and living a double life. It makes you do crazy things, and for a United States senator to be soliciting sex in a public restroom is a crazy thing.
You know, to understand his story and all of these stories, you have to understand where the culture was. In 1955, my newspaper reported on a gay sex scandal involving allegedly underage men and powerful people in Boise. Among the headlines on our editorial page was one that read, "Crush the monster." The monster being homosexual perversity. That was 1955. Larry Craig was 10 years old. And I imagine him thinking that that was an object lesson that he needed to heed. That he couldn't aspire to be a United States senator and be gay at the same time. Every time he was up for election, The question was raised, will someone raise the issue?
Good evening. The Capitol Hill investigation of sex and drugs, which had existed mainly in the congressional rumor mill, today took on the attributes of a serious and spreading scandal.
The FBI formed a special squad to investigate allegations of homosexual activity between congressmen and teenage pages. One congressman came forward after rumors surfaced that he was involved in the case.
I've always been aggressive and upfront with what I believe in, and when I have people telling me that a whole series of false accusations are made against my character, frankly, it makes me mad as hell.
Many of the people who are gay, who are in public service, seem to think that they're immune from being exposed. And they go out. They go to bars. They go to clubs. They even go to bathhouses.
When I was really young in D.C. back in the 80s, one of my favorite places to go back then was the Follies. There were a number of men I saw there from time to time, and he was one of those. He had taken notice of me, and then he said, well, let's go somewhere else. And I proceeded to follow him to his house on Capitol Hill. And there were pictures of family around and a card that was addressed to Suzanne Craig. We then wound up performing oral sex on each other, and then he wanted to fuck me. Once he had come, it was everything to get me back out of there. He grabbed me by the shoulder and very boldly said, remember, you never saw me, you've never been here. And he reached into his pocket, took out a $20 bill, shoved it in my back pocket with one finger, and said, just remember, I can buy and sell your ass 1,000 times.
Let me be clear. I am not gay. I never have been gay.
It's very often those self-hating gay people who in the closet are the most vicious towards other gays and lesbians as a way to kind of deflect attention from their own orientation.
There is not one civil rights law at the federal level that exists to protect gay, lesbian, bisexual, or transgender people. There's absolutely not one law.
The fact that Senator Craig and those like him can engage in homosexual activity 1 minute and then try to write us out of existence the next, there is no punishment harsh enough as far as I'm concerned.
He was a powerful force on Senate committees, a solid family values conservative.
The American people already know that Bill Clinton is a bad boy, a naughty boy. I'm going to speak out for the citizens of my state who, in the majority, think that Bill Clinton is probably even a nasty, bad, naughty boy.
But in October 2006, 8 months before the senator's arrest in Minneapolis, a gay activist named Michael Rogers, who makes it his business to out conservative politicians, wrote in his blog that he'd interviewed several men who'd claimed to have had sex with Senator Larry Craig.
In October of 2006, I outed Larry Craig. I know somebody who had sex with Larry Craig in a restroom at Union Station. That, to me, is the crux of the case right there. And right now I have a number of open files of folks that I'm actively looking at, from a U.S. cabinet official to the offices of some pretty anti-gay members of Congress. So I'm here, I'm getting ready to go on Hannity and Combs tonight at 9 o'clock. David's with me, helping me out on some of my talking points. Say hi, David.
Hello.
Can't let the right wing be the only ones with the flag. I actually once had somebody ask me on Fox News, are you sure you want to wear that flag? Yeah, I am. So, David, why don't you fire me a few questions, like how Hannity's going to do that, you know?
Yeah, Mike, how is what you're doing different than McCarthyism? This is McCarthyism.
First of all, so, David, why don't you fire me a few questions, like how Hannity's going to do that, you know? Yeah,
Mike, how is what you're doing different than McCarthyism? This is McCarthyism.
First of all, Sean, McCarthy was a liar. McCarthy put out false information
about American.
Oh, no, that's just dishonest. I'm about to cut you off right there. That's just dishonest. Because
Sean, this is what happens. This is what happens.
I know, your mouth for nothing will come out of it.
Breaking news tonight, Fox News has confirmed that Senator Larry Craig may be reconsidering his decision to resign. Joining us now with reaction to this story is blogger Mike Rogers, who called for an investigation into Craig last year. All right, from the beginning.
Hi, Sean, and good evening. Thank you for having me on. Larry Craig is a hypocrite. He is a anti-gay, closeted individual who has sex with other men.
Well, I read what you had, and apparently this tape of this one guy that the Idaho Statesman followed up on, it was
Well, it's not one guy, Sean.
It was an anonymous source. Why doesn't the guy go on the record?
Sean, it's not one guy. It's now 3 or 4, and there's absolutely no doubt in my mind. I have heard physical characteristics repeated to me from various individuals.
I don't know about Senator Craig. I'm going to be honest. Right. I don't have the details. There is suspicion in my...
Are there others in the same category as Larry Craig whose names will be forthcoming because of your work?
Absolutely. There are names in the folks in the Congress and high positions of power who are leading a secret double life. And what I would say to Sean is, Sean, where do you stand with Larry Craig? And will you stand in the same position if other two-lived hypocrites are exposed? Because I can assure you that there is no shortage. My first very big case was this congressman in Virginia by the name of Ed Schrock. A month later, I got a tip that there was a congressman who was gay and that he was using a interactive phone dating service to find what may be known as Instasex, or, to hook up with somebody for sex. And the first thing I said to the person was, well, this is insane. I can't put up that a congressman is using an interactive phone service without proof. I mean, that's a hell of a charge levy. And he says, I have several recordings of the congressman going on the phone line to meet a man for sex, and they're very explicit, and I was like, wow.
I weigh 200 pounds, 6'4", 8 blind spots. You're very fucked up, very tanned. I just like to get together with a guy time to time, just to play. I like his feet, very good shape, flat stomach, good chest, good arm, cut. Just get naked, play, and see what happens. Nothing real heavy duty, but just a fun time. Go down on him, go down on me, and just take it from there. Hope to hear from you. Bye.
So I took the recordings and went ahead and reported on Ed Schrock on my blog.
A case of the moral hunter becoming the moral hunted. Congressman Edward Schrock, a Virginia Republican who once co-sponsored a bill to ban same-sex marriage, dropped out of his bid for re-election last month.
He never admitted that they were him, but he resigned from his re-election. There it is. I'm going to tell people who these horrible traitors are, and they are traitors to their people. I believe that. And I felt that it was time for me to start reporting that as hypocrisy. Not outing people who are gay, but reporting on individuals who are working against the community that they then expect to protect them. Be waiting in front of 1600 Broadway. That's perfect.
Michael's decided that they have been chasing us for years. And what Michael represents is we're going to chase back. Now that upsets the rules because everyone knows the hounds chase the foxes. Well, this fox is chasing the hounds, and it's got them all bent out of shape. And I say more power to him.
I think outing is a fundamentally wrong and dishonest thing to do. No one can ever know or understand the personal journey that an individual takes to accepting the fact that they are gay or lesbian.
I just feel sympathy when they are exposed that way. I think every gay person knows what it's like to have your privacy ripped apart.
There is a right to privacy, but not a right to hypocrisy. It is very important that the people who make the law be subject to the law. People who are not subject to laws will make harsh laws because they don't have to live with them. Having the people who make the law be fully covered by the law is a safeguard against unfairness. Well, that's a fundamental principle on which our democracy is in part built, that gay people who support homophobia are violating.
And now to campaign 2006. He's been the state's attorney general and education commissioner, and on Tuesday, Charlie Crist hopes to be elected governor.
Charlie Crist, 50, single, no kids, doesn't own a home, wants to live in the governor's mansion.
I'm a consistent conservative, and I can continue to stand for the things that I believe in.
At a stop in Miami, the tone was urgent.
Advocate. I need you to get out there. I need your vote. I need your heart. I need your passion. Get out there, get it done. Viva Crist. Let's win. God bless you.
I believe that marriage is a sacred relationship between a man and a woman. I've always felt that way, and I still believe that now. Marriage is a relationship like my mother and father had, like I had before I got divorced. It is one of those unique institutions, not only in America, but across the world, where a man and a woman commit to one another.
Hi, Bruce. This is Bob Norman with New Times. I am a journalist who works in the alternative realm, and I do the stories that the mainstream media doesn't do. I had written about Mark Foley in 2003, and that had gotten a tremendous amount of attention. That was what led to my involvement with Crist in terms of writing about Crist. A source who contacted me via email. And this source was at a dinner party at a multi-million-dollar mansion in Fort Lauderdale, and he was with a young staffer named Jason Wetherington. Jason was a young Republican staffer working for Katherine Harris, the famous masquerade queen of the 2000 election.
Jason, he said that he had met Charlie Crist, had a relationship with him, a sexual relationship with him, and he expected after Crist won the election, he would get an appointment to Crist's administration, and that he had hoped to continue the relationship.
I felt that this source was completely earnest and honest, and so I decided I was going to go see Jason Wetherington. He was very, very uncomfortable with the line of questioning. That was obvious. That he initially said that he hadn't said that at the dinner party. Then he hedged that a bit. Well, I might have been drinking, that kind of thing. He was extremely upset and just said, do what you have to do.
I know you've addressed this question once or twice before, the whisper campaign by your opponents about whether or not you're gay. Now, I don't care whether you are or not, but in fact...
the point is I'm not.
In fact...
There's the answer.
Well,
I like it.
That's right. Well,
not that there's anything wrong with that, as they would say on Seinfeld, but I just happen not to be.
And then I got another phone call, and it was from another friend of Jason Wetherington's.
There was a dinner party that was held at my home, and Jason was at the party. He began to allude that there was a relationship between Crist and him, and that it was physical.
Now I've got two same thing, who don't know each other.
It was revealed at night that Crist did have a partner. It was revealed at night that Crist did have a partner, where there was another man in his life.
And it was Bruce Carlton Jordan. He was friends with Jay Voss, a veteran Republican pilot, and Jay Voss's girlfriend, Dee Dee Hall.
The sworn statement you give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. Yes.
Do you know a gentleman by the name of Bruce Jordan?
Yes, I do.
Did he tell you that he was gay?
Yes, he brought up the fact that, that he was in a relationship, that he was involved with Charlie, and I was like, okay, and then he just stated his first name, and he said, maybe you've heard of him. He said, Charlie Crist.
I contacted Charlie on the phone and asked him directly about Jason Wetherington and Bruce Carlton Jordan. Charlie very smoothly denied that he knew or remembered knowing either one of these people.
The governor-elect of the state of Florida, Charlie Crist.
Nearly 4,000 children are waiting to be adopted in Florida, but the state is still turning away couples looking to adopt. Why? Because they're gay.
Frank Gill is a gay foster parent who wants to make it permanent. Gill and his partner have been foster parents for 4 years to these two boys, now 4 and 8 years old. They were neglected and abandoned by their birth parents. Florida's the only state in the country that bans gay adoption. Governor Charlie Crist has supported the prohibition on gay adoption and tells the Herald he has no second thoughts on that.
Welcome back. I'm Michelangelo Signorelli on Sirius LQ 109. Mike Rogers, the most feared man on Capitol Hill, according to the Washington Post, is now here in the studio. He is the man who got the ball rolling on Larry Craig, the senator from Idaho. Welcome to the show.
I heard you're gay.
Are you going to out me now?
That's what they say.
This is always a question that people put out there. Are you only focused on Republicans, or are there closeted Democrats doing damage, and how come they're not being exposed?
What I tell folks is the reason that 90% of the cases or so are Republicans says a lot more about the Republican Party than it does my work.
And what we're showing is it's the closet. It's not homosexuality. It's the closet that breeds that kind of
And the closet
stuff.
of hypocrisy.
Absolutely.
And it has given a lot of credibility to the work you began a decade ago.
You know, I went to journalism school, left, thought I was going to get this great serious news job, and wound up working for a PR firm that specialized in gossip. And it was in that world, in the 80s, that I saw how the gossip world would glamorize heterosexuality, but anything about any celebrity who was secretly gay, we would help them cover. It was the one area where they didn't demand the truth. Everywhere else, they wanted to know who was dating who. But when it came to gay celebrities, it was accepted and understood that you covered for them and you actually put out lies. I started to write a column called Gossip Watch. It was a watch of the gossip columns. It was a look at how the gossip columns, which are read by more people than any other forum in the media, are completely constructed and created to glamorize heterosexuality and keep homosexuality invisible. In 1990, Malcolm Forbes, the multimillionaire publisher of Forbes magazine, died. And the media immediately, in all of his obituaries, held him up as a very successful capitalist who was dating Elizabeth Taylor for years, and yet they left out the fact that he was gay. It took years, in fact, for the New York Times to finally say that Malcolm Forbes was gay, and I felt that the historical record had to be corrected immediately.
Michelangelo Signorelli is his name, and he's the one who outed Malcolm Forbes after his death, writing that Forbes, the very symbol of establishment capitalism, secretly was gay.
I'm certainly not doing anything wrong, and I think in 20 years from now, we're all going to look back and say, what the hell was all the big deal about? Welcome back. 11 minutes before the hour, I'm Michelangelo Signorelli. I'm here with Mike Rogers in studio, and we're taking your calls. You're on the Michelangelo Signorelli Show.
What happens when you guys expose all of the closeted people in the conservative movement? Get all the closeted people, all the hypocrites out of there. What have you got left but just the solid, non-hypocritical festival of hate?
It's a fair question. Mike, what do you think? Thanks for that, Greg.
Well, in most cases, when somebody is reported on, they become a pro-gay legislator. But
Is there a backlash, which is what he's asking? What happens when you leave just this core of hate? Well, Barney Frank puts it best. The reason people hate gay people is because their leaders tell them to. And I think that each one of these outings puts a little chink in the armor of the anti-gay family, so-called family values movement.
I, Ronald Reagan, do solemnly swear
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
That I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States.
And
the election of Ronald Reagan brought us a fairly large number of high-placed but closeted gay men in the Republican administration who failed to adequately address the epidemic of AIDS.
The President of the United States would not even say the word AIDS publicly as late as 1987.
Reagan had been elected on this fundamentalist conservative role in America, led by the National Conservative Political Action Committee. The president of NCPAC was Terry Dolan. Terry is dancing at Flamingo on the weekend in New York and propping up the most right-wing homophobes in America by day.
And this is a man who's raising money to kill us, Terry Dolan. And I went to a cocktail party in Washington, and there he was. And I threw a drink in his face. I said, how dare you come to a party of gay people after what you're doing to us?
Richard Crosby, the head of the NIH, in charge of all the infectious diseases at the time at the advent of AIDS, would not do anything that was required by the situation, anything heroic, simply because he was afraid he'd spent his entire career trying not to be identified with us. Everyone knows Richard's gay. He's got pictures of boyfriends on his dresser at home. And so that closet can kill other people, and it has. Before AIDS, we were concerned with privacy. After AIDS, that was collusion with genocide. Being silent, being invisible, particularly an elected or appointed official, whose responsibility it is to respond to this public health crisis, and they didn't because they were closeted gays. Ed Koch was mayor of New York City, and he didn't want to lift a hand to help gay people. He would not do anything that was required by the situation.
Fuck you! San Francisco AIDS organization was getting money from their mayor in huge amounts. We weren't getting anything. And it pissed me off more and more and more because we all knew he was gay.
Now, Ed Koch had always consistently in his public life refused to answer any questions about his sexuality.
When Ed's third or fourth term was coming up, I was asked then by press people to acknowledge that Richard Nathan was Ed's former lover. And so I stonewalled the press during that primary race because I didn't want to be the voice that outed a candidate. About 74, 75, when he was in Congress, Ed Koch was planning to run for mayor, and he started at his apartment in the Village. And one night, Richard and I were at Ed's house, and as we were departing, Ed said, "Oh, Richard, stay." And Richard said, "No, Ed, I have to go. I'll call you later." So as we were walking across Washington Square Park, I said, "What was that all about? You and the congressman?" And he said, "We're having a relationship." And I said, "You mean like a relationship?" And he said, "Yeah." And I said, "You know, why? You're a nice-looking young man. He's an older, not terribly attractive man." And he said, it's a real aphrodisiac when you get a call from Congress and say, "I'm coming in. Let's have dinner Friday night." The day Ed Koch was inaugurated, there was a private party, and we watched Ed come in with Bess clutching their pinkies. And Richard said, "I'm out of here. It's been made clear to me that I have to leave town, or at least not be in the picture." And he said, "So I've decided to move to California."
About a year or two after I got to know Dick, he
said he had something he wanted me to know. Over the course of a couple of years, he had been lovers of Ed Koch, and after they broke up, Ed had made it impossible for him to work in New York. No instance of homophobia hurt him more than the treatment by the man he was in love with.
I was at a fundraising event in Los Angeles in '81. A man came up to me and he said, "I'm Dick Nathan." And he proceeded to tell me about his affair with Ed Koch and what a pig he was, and that he was prepared finally to come and announce publicly that Ed Koch was gay, which was what we needed. So he came to New York, and oh boy, it was, we were beside ourselves. And Dick Nathan came and said, "I'm sorry, I can't do it."
Dick was worried about his safety, and Dick did feel that if he went public, he would suffer.
Dick was threatened, physically threatened and financially threatened, and he came and he was terrified in the middle of the night leaving the city.
First met Jim McCrery in the fall of 1975 at the Sigma Nu fraternity house. I knew from the moment we met that he was interested, and it was the next summer, during summer school, that it began.
The moment I spoke to Gary, I knew he was telling the truth. But nonetheless, for his own protection and for the protection of the magazine, we wanted to source it as though the New York Times was doing it. So we found several people who also had sexual relationships with Jim McCrery, who had signed legal affidavits.
Jim is, 7 years my senior. He would just appear at the fraternity house from time, his annual pilgrimage, so to speak, in the fall.
Jim used the fraternity house as his gay bar, and he would find young men who he thought he had a good chance at having a sexual relationship with.
Jim would come into my room at nighttime, kind of touch me a little inappropriately at times.
And he was my first sexual relationship, as he was a number of my fraternity brothers.
McCrery was ambitious to the point where he would make moral compromises. But what happens when the moral compromising is about your own identity?
The Jim I had, and everyone had always known, had been an atheist. And he had given speeches about his lack of belief. He was a Democrat, very liberal, had no problem saying his opinion on the immorality of the sodomy laws, things like that. When a group of backers came to him and decided that he was going to be their candidate, he changed his party, and then went down and joined the church that had the biggest columns for him to have his campaign pictures taken in front of, and ran as a right-wing Christian coalition candidate. He became a totally different person.
I'm Johnette McCrery. I believe my husband Jim is the kind of person we need in Congress today. He's good-hearted, but he's not soft-hearted. He's sensitive without being foolish.
In 1992, Jim came to my house, spent the night, and we had sex. We never discussed his political platform or what he believed in. We just had sex.
Bottom line, Jim's a good husband, a good father, and a good congressman. He gets my vote. Would you please give him yours on Election Day?
To be able to live this kind of a lie, this has gone on now for 17, 18, no, 20 years.
That's the main thing that attracted me to Mitt Romney, was his strong sense of personal commitment to his wife, his family, to his values. It's not something he just talks about, it's something he lives.
The closest thing to a turning point, though, was when I went to the grave of a Sigma Nu brother that died of AIDS. Jim knew him well, one of my best friends. And standing over that grave did a lot. It let me know that I had to do it. I had to do it. There was some attention in the national media. Very, very little on a local level.
The non-gay press saw it as sort of distasteful. They didn't cover gay life at all, except maybe the most dramatic elements of it.
It was Gary that reaped all the havoc from this. He was shunned by the community. His parents received all sorts of hate mail. And Jim, nothing happened to Jim. He was elevated even higher.
Jim is retiring from a great congressional career. Thousands and thousands of honors and awards. How many of those would he have gotten if he had been true to himself?
What I feel that I'm doing in this outing work, it's not about anybody who's alive today. It's about tomorrow's generation and the one after and the one after, because this hate, this vitriol, it's generational for these anti-gay people.
My personal experience of the good activists, it is all driven by rage, righteous indignation. People are suffering and dying because some self-promoting asshole is telling a lie.
Activism is about anger. Activism is about responding to something that you know is wrong and you don't like it.
Give me a call. I'm interested. I'm doing a story and I want to set up an interview with my blog is blogactive.com. Is he here?
There's no area. I can't record in here.
This is Representative David Dreier. He's the former chair of the Rules Committee. He came as a closeted gay man too.
We're here for the consideration of H.J. Res. 106, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the United States relating to marriage, as well as H.R. 319.
Dreier's voting is a matter of record. It is, without question, somewhat hostile to gays, and in fact, he is a frontline member of a political party where a considerable wing of that political party is openly hostile to gays.
David Dreier officially still denies being gay, despite lots of evidence to the contrary.
You could hear in the newsroom just occasionally when a story would come up that Dreier was, quote, what I realized before long, it was code words.
Confirmed bachelor, conservative bachelor, dapper bachelor.
One of the big tips I got was, check out the boyfriend. I'm like, who's the boyfriend? All right, like the chief of staff. I'm like, ooh, that's interesting. So then we initiated a whole investigation. I go down to the Capitol and I copy every travel record of Brad Smith, who's the chief of staff, and David Dreier, who's the congressman. And what's fast, they said, oh, well, he travels with them. I'm like, well, these are different dates. One day apart on all the trips. If there was a congressman who traveled with his chief of staff continuously around the world, traveling one day before or one day after, that would be in the newspaper. But because he's sleeping with a man, because it's two dicks instead of one, that's their problem.
We're not asking Dreier what position he likes, how many lovers he's had, where he likes to get it on. These aren't the questions we want to put to Dreier. The questions that should be put to Dreier are, this is your voting record, this is your party's platform, its plank, its positions, and it seems to run absolutely contradictory to the way you've lived your personal life.
When he came on my program during the Republican convention, I asked him straight out.
There have been a lot of rumors that you yourself are gay, and people feel it's hypocritical of you
a lot of people have said
not
this, but
speak up in favor of same-sex marriage. Are you saying you're heterosexual?
I am not going to talk about this issue. That's really not what I'm here about.
A straight guy, there's no way he's going to answer that question with, well, I'm not really here to talk about that. He's going to say, yeah, I'm straight. So what?
Would you think it's hypocritical if a gay politician were voting against gay people?
I will tell you, I'm voting for all the American people.
You know, I happen to like David Dreier's political and policy work on many fronts, and he lost out in being the new Republican leader inside a caucus inside the Republican community because of the gay identity issue.
Did you expect to get the job that Roy Blunt got?
No, this is not something that I pursued. I mean, yes, I was talked to about this, and frankly, I said no, that I didn't want to do it. When
now, who talked to you about it? Is this
I don't want to get into that, Charlie.
The evangelical conservative wing of the party came in and said, not for 1 minute, not on your life. David Dreier is a closeted gay. This is a huge problem for us, and it's not going to happen.
I think it was a real sad thing that the country lost someone like David Dreier moving into Republican leadership over being gay.
The ultimate irony, I believe if David Dreier called a press conference tomorrow and announced, "This is my truth. 30 years in coming, but this is my truth," I think he'd probably be reelected.
If he decides to eventually come out, he'll do so when he decides to retire from the House. That's a tragedy. It's much better to have someone of David Dreier's really brilliant legislative skill in the House of Representatives finally coming out of his own volition. So is there an effort? Probably. Has he moved? No.
Lesbian and gay issues are underreported and undercovered in the media, sometimes because our allies in the media are trying to be sensitive to not out somebody.
All of my straight friends in the media handle this issue badly. Because I think it's discomforting. They don't know what to do about it.
Right after the break, we're going to interview Eric Weihenmayer, who climbed the highest mountain in the world, Mount Everest. But he's gay. He's blind. So we'll hear about that coming up.
Okay, as we head to the break. People will write about my religion, they will write about my height, they will write about my schooling, they will write about a whole range of things. If they won't write about my sexuality, they're in effect saying, the poor so-and-so, that is such a terrible fact we have to keep it secret.
Journalists are in the business of telling the truth, and they should be constantly reevaluating what they're doing and looking at why they treat homosexuality and heterosexuality differently.
My family jokes that when they watch the news with me, like, that reporter's gay, because it permeates the media here. All the reporters are gay. CNN and Fox, and the same ones who are covering the story, they're part of the Washington culture too. So for them to be ambitious, they don't talk about their sexual orientation, haven't for years.
Live from New York, this is the Fox Report with Shepard Smith.
J-Lo's new song, Jenny from the Block, all about Lopez roots, about how she's still a neighborhood gal at heart. But folks from the Bronx section sound more likely to give her a curb job than a blow job or block party. We're sorry about that slip up there. I have no idea how that happened, but it won't happen again.
I was at a bar in New York, a gay piano bar on the Upper East Side called Brandy's, and we sat down next to this guy, and it was Shepard Smith from Fox News. And he started chatting me up and buying me drinks, and he asked me if I'd come back to his apartment at 3 o'clock in the morning. And a year went by, and he started getting a lot of exposure as the new rising star of cable TV news, and he was granting interviews to reporters and being profiled in the New York Times, and was being more than coy about his sexual orientation, because it was asked, and he was either lying or dodging the question. And it was at that point that I said, okay, time to come out. I think it to this day remains the most popular column that I've ever written. Everyone loves a good outing.
This town is full of gay people.
remember when I first moved here thinking how gay it was.
Sometimes I think Washington's more gay than San Francisco is.
Capitol Hill is packed with gay staffers. There are so many of them.
You can't swing a dead cat without hitting a gay staffer.
There's a running joke that actually the gay men make Capitol Hill run on time. They don't have like a wife or children to go home to, so they can work really long hours.
I mean, I think if they tried to fire gay staff like they do booting people out of the military, the legislative process would screech to a halt.
To this day, I have not seen any place like it. So it is probably like the most gay place. Unfortunately, it's probably still the most closeted place.
There are scores of closeted Republicans and Democrats, I might add, who, just because of their life journey, because of their generational experience, because of their desire not to be vulnerable in terms of getting reelected, have chosen to stay in the closet.
Yeah. From the day I first got elected to public office in 1972, I was closeted for the first 15 of those years. My original view was that I could be publicly kind of neutral, and privately I could live a life of a gay man, but it doesn't work, because when you're reasonably prominent, what can you do? You can't go to bars to meet people. You can't, I mean, you can't meet people without outing yourself, so it's kind of hard to be public and closeted.
There were lots of rumors that had been around, and I was always concerned about what kinds of things would come up in a campaign or what things might be said. So, you know, there was that kind of thing that gnaws at you. It's just there. It's sitting on your shoulder like a little Tweety bird sitting on your shoulder there about to chirp at you, and you never know when it's going to do that.
If you are a lesbian deeply in the closet and you're having a conversation about you know, who you share your life with, you either have to lie and say he rather than she in referring to your partner, but alternatively using genderless pronouns to, you know, we had a good weekend, and you know, just sort of avoiding it, and really that takes a lot of energy to do, to make sure your story's straight, so to speak.
When you're living in the closet, the fear is that someone's going to expose you for their political gain to take you down. And so you're always wondering, is this the conversation? Is this the person? Is this the situation? When I ran for mayor the first time, I received threat letters and threat phone calls, and I've saved the letters, and one of them said, we're coming to the public forum and we're going to expose you, so all your supporters will know that you're really a gay man.
For anyone to know that you're gay, to be the gay anything, would be the worst thing in the world to happen to you. You could lose your family, you could lose your job, you could lose your power political position, you could lose your seat in Congress.
I've had members of Congress crying in my arms because they don't know how to come out.
When you try to compartmentalize all of these parts of your life, and if you try to shove your sexual orientation into a box and keep it from your constituents, that it has very
Good afternoon. Throughout my life, I have grappled with my own identity, who I am. As a young child, I often felt ambivalent about myself, in fact, confused.
From the first words out of his mouth this afternoon, it was clear Jim McGreevey, the governor of New Jersey, was making very big news indeed.
At a point in every person's life, one has to look deeply into the mirror of one's soul and decide one's unique truth.
And beyond the facts and allegations and anguish immediately surrounding his story, what the governor said today also becomes part of a larger story at a turning point for the country.
And so my truth is that I am a gay American.
Another boundary of American politics has been crossed today. With his wife by his side, the governor announced that he is gay, that he had an affair with a man, and that he would resign. His announcement makes him the highest-ranking American politician to identify.
I began to understand that, even in grammar school, that somehow I was profoundly different. No one comes up to you and tells you that, you know, you're African American or Jewish American or Irish American. I mean, you discover you're, you know, gay by yourself. And I was going to the public library and looking for what is homosexuality and what are its origins and how it's described. Well, it was all horrific. It was all apocalyptic. It was a curse. I accepted all those messages of shame and messages of hate, messages of ignorance. But you realize it's intrinsic. It's who and what you are. And so you deny this thing, but what happens is it comes out. And it comes out in dark places. You begin to believe that it is shameful because you're acting, for me, in shameful ways. I mean, where am I having sex? I'm having sex in back alleys of abandoned synagogues. I'm having sex on rest stops. Well, the fact is my straight friends were, you know, picking up their girlfriends in bars and at parties and doing it wherever. I didn't have that opportunity to do it in public ways that were healthy, that were safe, and that were accepted. And so by doing it in secret, closeted ways, I believe it is unhealthy for the psychology, it is unhealthy for the being, and it was unhealthy for my soul.
All right, so let's start from the beginning. Went in the bathroom. I went in the bathroom. I got in a stall, sat down. I started to go to the bathroom. Did our feet come together? Apparently they did bump.
Let me be clear. I am not gay. I never have been gay.
He doesn't think he's gay, and you know when he's not gay. Maybe he's homosexual or something, I don't know. Not gay as in identified politically with our tribe.
Who knows if Larry Craig is gay or not, but whatever he is, it's possible that he's actually part of us. We don't want him, but it's possible he's actually part of our community.
I think there are a lot of people, especially in his generation, and it's still possible in younger generations, for people to be so terrified internally of their own sexual orientation, they literally just suppress it to such an extent that they can't even acknowledge it while acting as it.
Are you technically not a homosexual? Is it possible you're bisexual?
It's no to both.
The other question is, do you think it would be something that would be awful? In other words, do you view it as something that would be awful to have to admit that you were gay?
I don't agree with the lifestyle, and I've said so by my votes over the years.
I think that for a lot of gay people who may harbor some very, very deep, internalized homophobia, one of the ways that they feel better about themselves is by aligning themselves with the forces that might actually want to do harm to them.
As a teenager, I was labeled a fag, and what I would do in order to battle that and fight that was I would join up with the other guys who would bash other gay boys to prove that, hey, I'm not a fag, I'll even beat up one. And that, going back, is really what we see today in so many people who are in Congress voting against gay people. Same thing I was doing as a teenager. They are bashing other gay people in order to prove that they're not gay.
I've never seen anything in history that where deeply anti or homophobic activities haven't been at some level perpetuated or fostered by people who were gay.
Look at McCarthyism and the witch hunts led by a closeted gay, Roy Cohn, a true evil bastard.
The target groups of witch hunts and prosecution were communists and queers.
Roy Cohn supported lots of really dreadful people who were completely homophobic, and in some ways was himself, homophobic. I mean, he had a lot of sort of negative feelings about out gay people.
Roy Cohn is not a homosexual. Roy Cohn is a heterosexual man, Henry, who fucks around with guys.
I had to take my best shot at trying to figure out how that kind of cognitive dissonance is navigated inside of somebody, and I feel like I did a pretty good job of it. I mean, the scene that everybody loves best is when he's diagnosed with AIDS and he says to his doctor, "I'm not a gay man."
Now, to someone who does not understand this, homosexual is what I am because I have sex with men. But really, this is wrong. Homosexuals are not men who sleep with other men. Homosexuals are men who in 15 years of trying cannot pass a pissant anti-discrimination bill through city council. Homosexuals are men who know nobody and who nobody knows, who have zero clout.
The rationale goes something like this, because it took me a while to figure it out, but it was sort of like, Rich, you are a weak gay because you came out. I'm a stronger person because I remain not part of a gay liberal community. I am still a conservative and I am everything I want. I don't push my agenda on anyone. And straights don't push their sexual lives. Why should we? And it's I've heard this a million times, and it's very warped, but it was sort of like you couldn't have the stamina to stay in the closet.
They're very careful. It's like a Broadway show. Politics is like a Broadway show to them in that everything is staged, everything is planned, every word that comes out of somebody's mouth is scripted.
Today is a special day in my life. It's not just Valentine's Day. It happens to be the anniversary of the first date I had with my wife, Suzanne. Am I a romantic? Well, maybe just a little bit.
Even after the Craigs got married, and he adopted her 3 children from a previous marriage, the rumors about her husband persisted.
They were saying that it was a marriage of convenience.
To cover
a
gay lifestyle.
Oh, give me a break.
And I know what they have to say in public, and I actually kind of admire them for being able to give that performance, and I'm sure I couldn't. But that's some weird shit.
People know me and know that I would never do that. That's almost like selling your soul for something. No.
Where do you find the spouses of these people who stick with them? I mean, that is so bizarre. How do you stand next to your husband after he's been in a stall? I mean, I would have been going to... I'd headed to a shower for a Silkwood scrub down, or certainly to an STD clinic. I wouldn't be at the Whistle Stop Cafe standing by him. Is she insane?
What interests me more, and I think what is more common, are these straight women who are married to closeted gay men who don't know.
I engaged in an adult consensual affair with another man, which violates my bonds of matrimony.
I dated Jim for 4 years before we were married, so I thought I knew him. People always say, oh, there had to be signs. They had to know. You know, this was an arranged marriage. With our sex life or relationship, there was nothing, or intimacy, there was nothing to indicate that there was a problem. You know, I had never been married before, so I couldn't compare it to another marriage, but from talking to friends and family, it was a normal relationship.
If you're keeping a double ledger from the second of your morning breath to the time you go to bed at night, it's like, a bad Star Trek episode, and you have to discern which foot is in which universe at any given time. You're playing in a parallel universe, but it's not integrated, it's not honest, it's not wholesome, and it's not transparent.
None of that was real. None of those feelings, of those emotions were real from his perspective. What part of my life and my marriage was real? Was that trip real? Was that vacation real? What about it was authentic? If your husband leaves you for another woman, or your wife leaves you for another man, at some point you had feelings for each other. So at some point there was love. In my case, I don't think he ever felt that for me.
There were moments of passion, but at that point, I wasn't ready to accept even who and what I am. So to be totally open with her, I would have had to accept myself and then share it with somebody I loved.
To a certain point they are the victim, but they made their own choices about how they were going to live their lives.
God the Father, God the Son, God the Holy Spirit, bless, preserve, and keep you.
Well, I think it had to be torture for him to go through life, trying to live as someone he clearly wasn't comfortable being. But he didn't have to destroy my life or my daughter's life or anybody else's life.
It was wrong, it was foolish, it was inexcusable. And for this, I ask the forgiveness and the grace of my wife. She has been extraordinary throughout this ordeal.
I've been privileged to serve people of this great state we call Florida. She is the state with the prettiest name, and I love her.
Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3.
At first glance, Kelly Crosby Heiniger seems like a typical suburban mom, but what makes her unique is the company she keeps.
He is a great guy, a lot of fun. He's real. He wants to make a difference.
He is Florida Governor Charlie Crist. Kelly was set up on a date with him for a charity event on Jupiter Island several months ago.
But you'd actually want rumors. I mean, I'd go to go-go bars with my buddies. I mean, my gay friends that afterwards, like, what did you do for those hours?
We have a good relationship. I enjoy his company, and I think he enjoys mine too, but I don't like to project, so.
I would sort of parse words when people would confront me. Oh, you know, I hear rumors that you're gay. And I'm like, oh, that's crazy. You're a homosexual. I said, well, that's absurd. I mean, there's rumors about everybody in politics. I mean, so you'd be dismissive.
But Charlie, let me ask you this question. Are you a homo?
No, man.
Okay, I didn't think so.
Well, Charlie, let me ask you this.
I love women.
I know. You know what?
Thing.
And I can attest, because I've seen you with some great-looking women, and I go,
Yeah, well, fortunately, I have, I'm very blessed.
Rumors that Crist is gay have been printed in alternative newspapers and online. He denies it, and Kelly doesn't give that speculation a second thought.
People say stuff to you about that? They do, but you know, when you put yourself in front of the public eye, someone is always going to have something negative to say, whether it be true or not.
The closet for me in the context of power politics is actually quite dangerous. I think it deeply convolutes your perspective on what's right and what's wrong. I think it makes you less genuine. I think people who are closeted and involved in politics are interested in continually covering up who they are and what they are, which I think delivers very negative public policy.
You know, in 1976, Terry Ford and Jimmy Carter were about even on gay rights. Since then, the Democrats have gotten better, and the Republicans, with the capture by the right wing, have gotten worse.
Starting in the early 70s, Joe Coors and a number of people paid Justice Lewis Powell, before he was on the Supreme Court, to write what we call the Powell Manifesto. Now, it was basically a concrete business plan on how to ensure free enterprise in perpetuity. And with what we call the 9 families, the Bradleys, the Scapes, the Owens, the Coors, this huge machine was built. Media monitors and judicial watches and elegant leadership development programs and think tanks that come up with issues that will pander to certain voters.
And what popped up for them like a gift was gay marriage. And they went, Eureka, this is what we'll use.
God, as California goes, so goes the nation. A confrontation between light and darkness will happen this November. A battle to save the very sanctity of marriage. To the victor goes the soul of the nation.
These gays is going to hell. abomination in the sight of God.
This is what the homosexuals can do. They don't really care about how much they destroy.
We should not let 2% of the population determine to change a definition of marriage that has been supported by every single culture and every single religion for 5,000 years.
Right now, the Republican Party and the religious right are in an unholy alliance politically, and I think their unholy alliance has been, largely focused on this notion of being, homophobic.
In America, the only marriage to be recognized is the marriage between a man and a woman.
I saw it coming in the fall of '03. With the Massachusetts court ruling, with a close election, I saw it coming.
I remember the day that President Bush got up and held the news conference announcing his support for the amendment.
Marriage cannot be severed from its cultural, religious, and natural roots.
Seeing the president announcing that one of his top priorities in Congress was to prevent me and my partner from having, a legitimate relationship. That was a powerful thing.
It's a very surreal experience to watch the State of the Union address and have the President of the United States attack you and demonize you in that speech that's being watched by the entire world.
It just made you sick.
It really, in many ways, was a gut check for me, and I think it was for a lot of other gay Republicans, too.
I was just furious. I felt betrayed. I felt angry.
I guess if I believed that it was a sincere personal conviction, I might have felt differently about it. But to just use that to get more votes.
This was just raw politics. The president didn't need to do this to get reelected.
I think the Federal Marriage Amendment was the most violent attack upon gay people and their rights in this country, explicitly, that's ever happened.
I cannot think of a better good that this body may pursue than to promote and defend the idea that every child deserves both a father and a mother.
Every act of violence against gay, lesbian, bisexual, transgender people usually starts with some form of very visible and very loud defamation.
Anywhere in the world today, you can wake somebody up in the middle of the night, you pick them, and say, "Excuse me, wake up just a second, what is a marriage?" And they'll say a union between a man and a woman.
So you have these anti-gay leaders that are spewing all this hatred about gay and lesbian people, and people who aren't really engaged and don't really know what's going on and don't follow it that much have a general same viewpoint as them, and they just sort of copy it and they mirror it, and that's how it transforms.
A charred truck threats, "I'll be back," and in bigger writing for everyone to see, "Gay must go."
22-year-old James Nicola, who goes by Janine, says he was the victim of a hate crime.
He says the attackers the whole time were yelling, "We want you out of our neighborhood."
San Jose, California. Bill Kiley suffered repeated harassment from a young neighbor.
This is video of Neve in the hospital just a few days after he was brutally attacked. He spent several days in Strong Hospital with a fractured skull, nose, upper jaw, and eye socket.
On May 29th, the 18-year-old victim's body is discovered in the woods behind his family's Woodlawn home. Police say Stephen Parrish had joined a Bloods gang and was killed by two members of his own. Police say Stephen Parrish had joined a Bloods gang and was killed by two members of his own group. Court documents say it's because they thought he was gay. That was 4 days before his graduation from Randallstown High School.
Students marched in Oxnard, California in memory of Lawrence Larry King. The 15-year-old student, police say, was gunned down by a classmate because he was openly gay. 14-year-old Brandon McInerney allegedly shot King in the head in the school's computer lab.
It's over, it's over.
King was pronounced brain dead at a local hospital. His body was kept alive so his organs could be donated.
Today I call upon the Congress to promptly pass and to send to the states for ratification an amendment to our Constitution defining and protecting marriage as a union of a man and woman as husband and wife.
Directly underneath the 2004 strategy around, anti-gay elements of the Bush campaign, you will find a cadre of gay people.
The 2004 election was a very anti-gay, it was a party.
And Ken Mellman was like the MC.
Lifestyle issues. Gay marriage. Is that an issue in this campaign?
I think it's an issue in many races, obviously.
It was hard because there wasn't the kind of evidence with Ken Mellman that there was with other people, but it was relatively known, and nobody would even ask.
A lot of the chiefs of staff, the people who really run the underpinnings of the Republican Party, are gay. I don't want to mention names, but I will Friday night. But
you will Friday night?
Well, there's a couple of big people who I think everyone in Washington knows who run the Republican...
You will name them?
Well, I wouldn't be the first. I'd get sued if I was the first, but, you know,
Why?
Ken Mellman, okay, there's one I think people have talked about. I don't think he's denied it when people have suggested. He doesn't say, I'm not...
I'm walking around in a fog. But Ken Mellman, I never heard that. But the question is...
Maybe you don't go to the same bathhouse I do, Larry. I'd get sued if I was the first, but...
The question is...
Maybe you don't go to the same bathhouse I do, Larry.
Why would someone who is gay take public anti-gay positions? Why would you do that?
Because, Larry, hating yourself is the greatest love of all.
Ken Mellman was the guy that ran the campaign that was sending out these flyers, that was baiting people, that was, I mean, particularly in Ohio, you know, in all these battleground states where it was all about, you know, let's get people to vote for Bush by this gay thing, led by the gay guy, you know, and funded by the gay guy, and politically directed by the gay guy, you know, and I think people deserve to know that.
I think Mary Cheney's outing was effective.
Oh, I'm appalled by the Cheneys. You know, I felt extremely disheartened that they were as supportive of the anti-gay policies as they were.
We always thought we had some protection because of the vice president's daughter.
If your father was not the vice president,
yes, sir,
and you were a gay woman in a gay relationship in the United States in 2004, 2000, would you have voted for this ticket?
yes, I would have.
If she were stripped of her father's title, she would be subjected to the same gratuitous discrimination that affects so many gays and lesbians in this country. She is protected by her position and her money.
And you have a partner?
I do.
Gay couples cannot file jointly for federal taxes, is that true?
That is true.
Yeah, and your feelings about that?
I think it's wrong. I think they
Did
should
you talk
be
to
able
your father about this?
We have many conversations about different issues.
Well, maybe that's the point. Maybe I'm wondering if people would rather you had talked about it during the campaign as opposed to after the campaign's waiting and putting it in the book. Would it have been more effective to talk about it then?
I honestly don't think it would have
I'm completely unimpressed that she doesn't agree with President Bush or her father, Dick Cheney, when in fact she worked. She was a paid operative to get them elected and then reelected.
You know, Mary Cheney's job before her father ran for president was to be the gay and lesbian liaison for Coors Beer.
She made her living figuring out how to dissect the gay community into niche markets and sell them Coors Beer. But she wasn't inquisitive enough and didn't care enough to dissect the Republican Party and the elite of that party to figure out how to get basic rights passed. There is probably not a better example of someone who is so steeped in hypocrisy. She could have made a huge difference and did not.
I got a call from a good friend of mine who told me that there was a gay activist who was going to start a blog and was going to start outing Republicans. Now, during this time, I was the national field director of the Republican National Committee, and one of the big responsibilities that I had was helping to oversee a direct mail program.
I was the first one to get a pamphlet from an Arkansas reader of my blog that said that the Democrats were going to ban their Bible and turn states into bastions of homosexuality. And they were sending this to church pew rosters around the country.
It was sent by the Republican National Committee, and they didn't even try to hide it. Dan Gurley, who had ultimate authority over these unbelievable flyers, he had a profile on gay.com that was stashed full of a bunch of his pictures, and he was seeking multiple partners for sex.
I got a call from him at home one Sunday night saying, you're the one, you're going to be next. He pointedly asked me if I was a gay man, and I told him that I was. He immediately then started to question me about, did I not have a conscience? Did I not feel some sort of remorse or regret for working for a political party, working to help elect a president that did not support equal rights for gay Americans? I basically just said, you do what you feel like you think you have to do. I was in line for a presidential appointment, in all likelihood in some policy role somewhere. But once Rogers did this posting about me, that opportunity evaporated.
Recently, I get an email. Dan Gurley's on the board of North Carolina Equality. And I'm like, what? And I went to the website, I looked it about, and I'm like, this is hot. This is why I started Blog Active. He's an out gay man, and he's proud, and he's on the board of a statewide national gay group. This man is using his skill to secure gay rights. What could be better, and what better effect could I have as an individual?
When you come out, I guarantee you the experience will be better than you ever dreamed it would be. In a sense, I came out, I guess you might say, in stages. I left a marriage back in 1991, and that was a big step for me. I recognized to myself and to her what the feelings that I had. July of 96 is when we had a vote on what was called DOMA, the Defense of Marriage Act. And I voted for that. At that time, the Advocate magazine decided they would write an article and approached me about it and told me they were going to do so and name me as one who was gay. And I basically just said, well, I thought that was wrong for them to do that. I said, I'll beat you to the punch here, and I just did it myself. It was probably the most lifting experience I've ever had. I had this unbelievable, indescribable sense of peace and calm come over me. And I could literally feel 40 years just lifting off of my shoulder.
I'll never forget when I did my announcement speech. My mother had found some prayer cards from my grandmother, for whom I was very close to. And I remember going into the bathroom just outside the governor's office and praying to my grandmother and saying to her, at long last, this is who God made me, and this is a good thing.
I always remember John McCain. When I started, just Steve say, John, there's something I really want to talk to you about and tell you about. He just put up his hand and says, never mind, Jim, I know. He said, it doesn't make any difference. You're a good legislator. You've always been, and you're always going to be my friend. And I remember walking away from that conversation thinking, gosh, that was pretty easy. That wasn't very tough to do that. And so each one was kind of like that. And so it got so I couldn't wait to pick up the phone to make the next call.
I think in the case of a member of Congress,
to do that. And so each one was kind of like that. And so it got so I couldn't wait to pick up the phone to make the next call.
I think in the case of a member of Congress, they do change their voting record. Because once you're out of the closet, your delusional thinking falls by the wayside.
Gentleman is recognized for 3 minutes.
Mr. Speaker, we have not used the amending process to limit the rights of citizens. From the First Amendment to the 14th, the original framers in the Congress that followed have sought to expand to protect the rights of citizens. This would be a unique amendment in that it takes away rights from one group while specifically conferring it upon another. Try to find another provision in the Constitution that does this. You will look in vain. Mr. Speaker, this Congress and those after it should be about protecting and expanding freedoms. This proposed amendment to our Constitution is about discrimination. It is about fear. It is unnecessary. It is unwarranted, and it should be soundly defeated.
Amendment 2 does only one thing, defining marriage as a union of a man and a woman. That's it. When you vote, say yes to pass life to the next generation. Vote yes to keep marriage one man, one woman. That's it. No one loses benefits. Please vote yes on Amendment 2.
A big political announcement out of Florida tonight. Republican presidential candidate John McCain has picked up a major endorsement.
I don't think anybody would do better than the man who stands next to me, Senator John McCain.
Governor Crist, just real quickly, are they chatting with you about a possible VP slot for you? Come on, be shameless. Tell us.
We're chatting about working hard for Florida.
Crist has obviously coveted the vice presidential spot on the Republican ticket.
Try getting married? Is that what we're hearing this week? Is this part of the excitement and the build-up to running for VP, or what? What's going on here?
You know, if your wife can't help you in a campaign, who can?
The state's most eligible bachelor is officially off the market this 4th of July. Governor Charlie Crist is engaged. He popped the question yesterday to his girlfriend of 9 months. Her name is Carol Rome.
Let me start by asking you, what made you decide to pop the question when you did, and, you know...
Well, I mean, I think you pop the question like that when you're in love, and I am. And so that's why I did it. And thank God she said yes, and we couldn't be happier.
I tell them to never lie, that if they get the question, they should be prepared to answer the question honestly and do nothing but answer the question honestly.
What's your reaction to some people's preoccupation, and I'm not talking necessarily about the marriage, with your sexuality? Mm-hmm. Both, you know, the rumors the various rumors that have been around.
Sure. Well, you know, I mean, when you're in the public eye, I mean, being governor of Florida, that's inevitable. And, you know, I don't really focus on it. I'm just, you know, damn glad to have found such a wonderful lady.
The sad thing about the closet is you know, it does in part give you skills that you can apply as a politician, because so much of politics today is, you know, positioning and spinning and being able to pirouette on issue.
One aspect is that you're gay. The other one is that you're a serial philandering heterosexual. Does that bother you?
Well, lack of truth always would be disturbing to somebody, but I'm just pleased that I've found happiness.
I've watched decent people struggle with coming out and being unable to do so. The closet, particularly in the midst of a cultural war, suffocates the integrity of decent people.
For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united with his wife, and they will become one flesh, for God's design.
On November 4th, vote yes on Amendment 2.
With laws already on the books to ban same-sex marriage in Florida, voters now added that ban to the state constitution.
Oh, without a doubt. Without a doubt, the governor of Florida could have changed the outcome of that election had he not tilted to the right and decided to take the position that he did. Yeah, without a doubt.
You know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions, because you think you're doing the right thing, and damn it, you know what the right value is? The right value is truthfulness. The right value is honesty. The right value isn't living somebody else's truth. It's living your truth.
We don't have rights. Gay people do not have rights. Don't tell me that we do. That's why it's so important that we know about these personal relationships in people's lives. It affects government. It affects everything.
This whole issue really does impact the public policy arena. It affects some of our nation's most significant and powerful individuals, and it's why, you know, my hope is that this next generation of young American leaders doesn't have to be suffocated in the midst of a culture war that hopefully is ended by the time they reach Washington, D.C.
I really do believe, and I've always felt this, that the most important thing a gay person can do with respect to the social justice issues around homosexuality is simply to be out. And it staggers me today that so many are not.
If every gay person would come out of the closet, the gay rights movement would be over. You know, that's the sleeping giant of the movement, is all the people who are in the closet coming out en masse, and it'd be done.
If every gay person in this state came out to their family, their friends, we would win. But that means that every gay person must come out to their family so their family doesn't vote against them, to their friends if they are indeed their friends, to their relatives, to the people where they work, and to the next door neighbors, nobody else. If that happened across the state, we win.